Okay, Sunday, 31st of August, 2025. So Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. It is too risky not owning Bitcoin. There's a nice interesting trend happening with regards to a lot of hedge funds and a lot of managers who are slowly appreciating having a small portion of the portfolio in Bitcoin, 0.5%, a fraction of a percent, 1%, 2%, 3, 4, etc., etc. And remember, about a year or something ago, BlackRock recommended something as much as 85.3 or 83.5% of the portfolio in Bitcoin. Okay, so what's going to happen is that as these individuals understand the first principles of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is fundamentally maths, physics, and computer science, open source code. As they understand the first principles of Bitcoin, the allocation will increase because they understand the repercussions of the technology of those first principles, what it means for portfolio, the risk frontier, the efficient risk frontier, the trade-off between risk reward, and plotted as an axis, as a graph, and what that means for resilience, for beta, for defense, for long-term thinking in terms of the portfolio, especially as more people come to understand that the 60-40 portfolio is gone, no more, redundant, obsolete. You choose the word. But that, why? Because the first principles are too different. It's a 0 to 1 technology, Bitcoin is. So they understand how completely different it is and how it's a game changer. Right? Michael Saylor got it quite right a couple of years ago when he said that it breaks all your models, because now we have, in economic terms, a constants, something that stays staying forever with zero half-life, essentially. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. That'll be the case today. That'll be the case in 10 years, 20 years, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 years. The maths, again, Bitcoin is maths, open source code, and physics. Powerful stuff. So then it'll be risky not having Bitcoin on a portfolio. I think in the future, a lot of people will have arguments and debates and whatever else. Why didn't you do this earlier? Why didn't you do this in terms of fiduciaries? For example, who was it in December 2024? Microsoft, I think. And there was some McDonald's as well, I remember. They decided not to have it on their balance sheet. Fair enough, interesting. And now we see these Bitcoin companies, these Bitcoin treasury companies, I did some videos about this in the past, 25th of November 2024, more companies will start integrating it into their business model and start using it in some fashion. Powerful stuff, very, very powerful. So the principle there is to get off zero Satoshis, and understand you can buy fractions, a hundredth of a Bitcoin, for example. So you can nano purchases, £10, £20, $100 worth of Bitcoin at the current market price. So risky in a sense of reducing the risk, in a sense of less exposure to the third parties and more exposure to an asset with a fixed supply, apolitical, decentralized, fixed supply, censorship resistant, money you can own, money you can spend. That's powerful stuff. But as where the market and developments are going, it is risky to ignore the developments and the consequences in terms of the world and society and wealth building. The world we are entering into, the new zeitgeist in one meta level, is going to be built on predominantly Bitcoin. It's hyper-Bitcoinization, meaning that technology will be embedded into every single aspect of reality, of society and the world, the economy, even without you recognizing it, even without you knowing how it works. Just how in the same way we live in a internal combustion engine-ized world. The internal combustion engine is everywhere, but you don't need to understand how it works in order to use it or benefit from it. Buses and trains and cars. Like in the same way we live in HTTPS-ized world, that's the protocol behind the internet security. It's everywhere. Every website uses it. It'll be suspicious if you don't use it. It'll be suspicious if you don't use the internal combustion engine in the future and want to use horse and carriage or HTTP. Just how today it'll be unusual if you want to build a business not using the internet. What? Social media, things like that. And in the future, 15 years, at a comfortable rate, it'll be unusual not to be incorporating Bitcoin in some way into the business. Exactly. Exactly. Now, a couple of years ago now, almost to the day, well, I can't remember now, 4 years ago, I guess, I had an interesting conversation with someone with regards to Bitcoin. And I remember he had, my understanding and ability to articulate Bitcoin was not as easy or as complex as it is today. And he had issues with risk. Oh, but there's the price and the risk, the people, this and that and that. And it doesn't do this, doesn't do that, doesn't do whatever. And since then I've realized that we could say, well, Bitcoin doesn't have cash flow. Oh, thank goodness Bitcoin doesn't have cash flow. That's the correct response is, what a relief. It doesn't have a CEO. It doesn't have an office. It doesn't have a customer service support number. Oh, what a relief. It doesn't. That's a feature, not a bug. Because all these things imply third party. All these things imply a network relying on humans to have a network of sales, marketing, logistics, management, etc., C-suite, etc., etc. But because I understand that Bitcoin is built towards decentralization and security, not scalability. There's a trifecta in cryptocurrency. You can have two but not three. So here it's decentralization and security, meaning it doesn't have the risk of CEO, sales funnel, marketing, logistics, tariffs, you name it. Those risks don't exist. It's shredded away. All these things are stripped away from it. Hence, the first principles are completely different. Bitcoin is 100 times better than anything else out there in terms of fintech or types of money, currencies from different countries. It's 100%. It's completely different. Therefore, it's more worthwhile. It's more unique. It's powerful. It's profound. Interesting. So then you say, right, well, with all the risk stripped away, it's a new foundation to build on. Oh, a new foundation to build on. That's powerful. And as I said before, recently in a video, a week or so ago, a week and a half ago, I think 21st of August, and on 25th of November 2024, businesses out there will start accumulating Bitcoin, and as they accumulate more, they'll be more responsible to study more, and then that will encourage them to buy more, increase their conviction and buy more and more, and they'll figure out ways to incorporate it into their business model. There are businesses today that have not yet been founded that will be unicorns in the future that will have Bitcoin at its core and its fundamental. That will be Bitcoin native companies. Just how today we could say a lot of companies today are built natively on the internet, and that there are business models that are not viable today that will exist and be very viable and very scalable in the future. Micro transaction on insurance, for example, insurance by the second. You just zap Satoshis over the Lightning Network and you can pay for your insurance by the second. Car insurance, for example, or whatever kind of insurance by the second. Whoa, for example. And then as an interesting principle, you could say, if you could imagine it as a layman, meaning someone without the jargon or the technological know-how, then you can be sure engineers and entrepreneurs out there strategizing and building these business models. But they could just be too early in terms of technology. But there'll be businesses out there, incubated or not, and built in the garage, or wherever else, that will be headline, mainstream, household name in terms of Bitcoin, or utilizing Bitcoin 15 years from now. Easily. Just how in the same way we could say YouTube was not a thing in, pick a year, 1999, for example, 1995, for example, and yet 10, 15 years later, there we are, in the same way. So it's very powerful. So it's going to be increasingly risky not to be owning Bitcoin. Powerful stuff. Missing out on the understanding and you could say leveraging, not just benefiting, yeah, of course, but leveraging its first principles as a 0 to 1 technology, something completely different that changes the game. Powerful stuff. But otherwise, Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.